Hi everyone. In these videos I'll be looking at various aspects of orchestral scores. The order in which the various instrument families are arranged in an orchestral score is fairly standard, with the woodwinds at the top, followed by the brass, timpani, other percussion or solo instruments if included, and strings. Essentially, there are two ways which the first page of an orchestral score is presented, as here, where all instruments are shown, or here, where instruments are introduced as required. Typically with the second score type, a preceding page will list the instrumentation and may include some other instructions. For example, Stravinsky also suggests which players should double other instruments, such as the third flautist also plays second piccolo and the fourth oboist also plays second cor anglais. He also discusses performance tips for the timpani, the grouping of bars at rehearsal letter 39, and gives the approximate duration of the work. In many scores, the instrument names and other features may be written in a variety of languages, with Italian probably the most common. While the instrumentation list at the beginning of the Rite of Spring is shown in both Italian and English, often scores will simply list the instruments using the language from the composer's original score. If you don't have access to a list of instrument names in the required language, or have forgotten an instrument's name during a test, often an educated guess can be made as to what an instrument is by its score location. For example, if you know which instruments are located at the bottom of the woodwind section, you can determine that fagotti are bassoons. Also, in some scores, note names may be indicated using a system based on tonic solfa. For example, in the Schubert score, the tuning of the timpani is indicated as follows, denoting F sharp and B, the tonic and dominant of the work's tonic key of B minor. In many countries, adding IS after a note name indicates a sharp, while adding ES or S indicates a flat. The H follows a probable German-based system where B flat is written as B and B natural as H. In the Stravinsky instrumentation list also, the clarinets in B flat are listed using B. As an aside, this notational system allowed J.S. Bach to include his name as a musical motif in many of his works. When reading scores, an important aspect is whether it is notated as a written or sounding score. In other words, are all the transposing instruments written at their sounding or written pitches? A simple way to determine this is to look if any instruments have different key signatures to the strings. If they do, it means these instruments are transposing instruments and their parts are indicated at their written pitches. For example, in the Schubert score, we see that the clarinets in A have an F major key signature, which is a minor third above the key signature of the strings. The notes of the clarinet part, therefore, here sound a minor third lower than written. The horns, clarion, trumpets, and timpani also have different key signatures to the strings. However, in earlier scores such as this, it was often the practice to not include key signatures for these parts. These parts then are not in C major, but are simply written without key signatures. Therefore, because we know that this is a transposing score, we can determine from the instrument names where the notes of these parts sound. For example, the horns in D sound a major second higher than notated, and the two clarion trumpets sound a major third higher. A problem with this method of comparing key signatures to the strings occurs with more contemporary works, which are often written without key signatures. In these instances, often the composer or publisher will indicate the score type. However, if this information is not included, you can choose a transposing instrument from the score and listen to a recording to determine if the notes are sounding as written or at a different pitch. In the Rite of Spring, for example, the second horn's opening notes sound a fifth below the written part, indicating it is a written score. It is probably fair to say that, especially with published orchestral scores, most will be written scores unless labelled otherwise. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. See you next time.